Welcome everyone. This is Dr. Meskó, the Medical Futurist, and welcome to this the Medical Futurist live YouTube Q&A session. This time again, as in the last few times, we have a very special guest. I will introduce you quite soon. But as usual, I would like to introduce myself and the whole the Medical Futurist team. At the Medical Futurist, we have a team of 17 people, and we are trying to provide context about digital health technologies, artificial intelligence, health sensors, to understand how this paradigm shift is unfolding and what we, medical professionals, patients, policymakers, developers, can do all about that. And at the Medical Futurist Institute, we are essentially doing the same kind of job, but through peer-reviewed research. We try to publish in the highest level medical journals worldwide about the metaverse, about AI's role in precision medicine, about patient design, and what kind of cultural transformation that has been going on that we call digital health. These are the things that we are trying to do under the umbrella we call the Medical Futurist. And every 3 weeks, I have this live Q&A session with you here on YouTube. I know normally I ask you like where you're coming from and stuff like that, but now I would have a different question. If you could share in the chat section, which stakeholder would represent you the most in the healthcare ecosystem, that would be amazing. So whether you are a patient or you're a medical professional or other, a developer, inventor, policymaker, researcher, that would really help me and my special guest today to better understand who you are and why you are asking those questions. A special shout out to those that have been supporting us on the Medical Futurist YouTube channel, and also those that registered on the eventbrite.com website, and actually some of them submitted really good questions already. But the plan is that it's a live Q&A session, so please feel free to ask as many questions as you can. You know, the kind of job we are trying to do here, every single Q&A session, we try to answer as many as we can, sometimes even 50 or 60. It's totally up to you. Sarah, nice to meet you here on the chat. So at least we have a patient here. In the meantime, if you have any questions, also if you find any technical difficulties, the sound is not good enough, there is an echo like last time, please let me know so I can do something about that. But I really appreciate any kind of feedback. In the meantime, it's good to see that the chat is waking up. So 2 patients already, and Crosswater Digital Media says research and physician, clinician, patient education, content development. That's a very specific role. Thank you for sharing that. Before I dive into who the special guest is, and by the way, I think most of you know him quite well, let me share one of the papers I'm the most proud of in my research career. And that's when we could publish the paper in the Journal of Medical Internet Research called Patient Design, the Importance of Including Patients in Designing Healthcare. I published that with deBronkart, the words, I think it's easy to say, the words ePatient leader and a patient scholar for many years. And in that paper, we finally had the chance to describe what patient design is and why it's so different from patient centricity. Very briefly, as I think I have to say it out quite loud in the beginning of the stream, that patient centricity has been a passive process for patients for now, not a decade, but for many years. Pharma companies, healthcare organizations have been asking patients what they think about their guideline or final product or design, most of them. But it's a passive process for patients because whether their final opinions would be included in the final design was not their decision, but the decision of those companies and organizations. But in patient design, patients remain to be a proactive partner in the process, meaning you involve patients on the highest level of decision making. And I was very proud to be able to publish that paper with a patient scholar, especially patient deBronkart. And the reason why I'm so proud about that is that more than a decade ago, I met Dave for the first time at an event in California. And I will never forget how, sitting in a jacuzzi after 3 or 4 long days at the event, he started describing me patient empowerment and the paradigm shift we call digital health. And when everyone, literally everyone in the field focused on technological trends and which technology to overhype more, he kept on talking about the paradigm shift and the importance of understanding how scientific revolutions take place. He kept talking to me about a book from Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, and I just kept on learning about the important part of the whole digital health transformation. That we shouldn't focus on individual technologies, but we have to understand the high-level, long-term perspective. Only that way we can really help the stakeholders of healthcare to understand what's going on and how to actually implement those final technologies. In the meantime, it's good to see that there are many patients in the chat. I'm really happy about that. And there's a grad student in public health, a biomedical scientist. Nice to meet all of you. So now it's my opportunity to present you someone nobody has to present to anyone because he has millions of followers worldwide. My special guest today, ePatient Dave deBronkart, the patient scholar, the patient leader. Dave, shall I go on key and make you more embarrassed about that? Because that's what literally I think about you and your impact on the whole patient empowerment movement. So welcome to the live Q&A session. Hi, Dave.
Thanks. I've got an echo.
Okay, that's
What
very bad news for
can
me.
we do about that?
Actually, if you have an echo that's digestible, but people in the chat cannot tell us that they have an echo, we should try to keep on. But now actually I tried to decrease the volume, so it should be better by not having an echo. Hopefully it's better for you. And if in the chat you could let us know if anything is all right technically and you can see and hear Dave well enough, I would really appreciate that. In the meantime, Shayla Kawaya has a question. Where could we find a copy of the article? Of course, it's open access because we only publish in open access. I just shared a link in the chat. If there is a bit of an echo, but not a big deal, I'm still quite not happy about it. So while Dave, you could say a few words about, if I missed anything, and you could say just a few words about how you like to introduce yourself and what you expect from this discussion about patient design, that would be amazing.
Sure. I have no echo from you. I only have echo from myself. So if the people in the chat are not reporting a problem, then we're good.
Okay, audio video is great. Thank you, Balin, for confirming that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good. So I want to say that it's great to be alive. And the reason that's important is some people think that when a patient speaks out about changing healthcare, all they're doing is complaining. And in my case, nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, I was saved by the best of medicine. And I mean, medicine really achieved its potential for me. But then afterwards, as I started just studying the subject as a hobby, I came to realize that there were many ways that the system in general was thinking wrong, that really operating out of an obsolete paradigm. And as I learned more about it, a number of things happened, and I was invited to give my first speech by Gunther Eisenbach, the guy who publishes JMIR, where you and I published this article. And one thing led to another, and all I can say is it's my hope that in this conversation, we will all move things forward toward a clearer realization of how it can be that the world's most brilliant scientists and business people may have something to learn that they haven't realized by actually not just listening to patients, but bringing patients onto the team to actually make design decisions. You know, I think the summary of this whole session is a line from our article where we said, it's no longer viable for patient centricity to mean we were thinking about you while we made our decisions. You know, we want to bring patients into the design process.
Thank you, Dave. In the meantime, it seems I solved the echo issue, so hope that it will remain that way. And we have a question already from the chat, and thank you guys for giving us feedback about the technical issues. Dr. Yogesh Dukare has this very long question. Let me share that with you all. What are avenues to include other players apart from hospitals, like pharma companies, insurance players, to participate in health and well-being of patients, especially in chronic disease management?
Well, I think I'll turn the question other way around. because what we're here to talk about is involving patients in the work that they all do. Right? I want to take a moment to mention a friend who is in hospice right now, a real leader of the patient movement, Casey Quinlan. Her Twitter handle is Mighty Casey. She's a breast cancer patient who is very outspoken. Her Twitter profile says, it gets loud around me, which is true. But when she started getting involved in participating in company and hospital design sessions, she described the compensation as being a warm handshake and a cold bagel. And nothing more. It's like the hospitals, the insurance companies, the pharma companies inviting us in with the idea that we're lucky they would even invite us to come have a cold bagel with them, right? And that's what we're pushing back on. What we want is for them to actually invite us to sit on committees and do work with them. Could I say a word about the history of this in the evolution of government in the 20th century?
Of course,
we mentioned
please, feel
this
free to.
in
Of
our
course, it
paper.
would be good to summarize that. Absolutely.
Sure. And I know I need to be quicker. There was a woman in the U.S. government in the 1960s named Sherry Arnstein, and this was the era where motorways were being built through cities. And the citizens didn't like the decisions that the government was making. But the people in the government said, wait, we are academics. We understand what you need. And the citizens said, no, you don't. And today, it's a standard part of government process for the government to request public comment. And to invite citizen stakeholders into the design process.
And we have a new question, which I'm not sure if I understand. Okay, thank you. Azier Perez, I hope that I pronounced your name properly. What is your opinion, Dave, on PSPs from pharma companies? PSPs are patient support programs.
Well, if they're actually, so I have done a lot of work, as you have, with different pharma companies. Some of the most rewarding work has been with pharma companies. At the same time, sometimes they have programs that are just thinly disguised ways of looking good while manipulating the patient. So what it really comes down to is whether there is authentic power sharing in the agreement. And when I say power sharing, this is what Sherry Arnstein talked about, is if I and my fellow patients are on a committee and we are telling the hosts, no, don't do it that way, do we have the ability to veto the decisions? That's when you know that real authority and power is being shared. It's funny, I would look at PSP and I would say power sharing program.
I thought it was a PlayStation. I'm a video gamer, so it's that one comes to mind.
Well, yeah,
Easier.
sure.
There's a new question from Joe12345. Thank you both for your time. From a health informatician in the UK, what is the difference between patient design and patient experience, aka the lived experience? It's a good question.
Yeah, this is great. It'd be nice to have a Venn diagram, because the patient experience is all the different things that affect whether I got what I needed and whether I had a good or a bad time doing it. Now, patient design is a management strategy, a management philosophy that you can use that has many benefits. It optimizes the flow of value through the system. And one of its outputs would be improved patient experience. I hope that's helpful.
I think it's the best way I've ever heard it. I mean, we must make a Venn diagram about that to show the difference between these terms to people. There's a question from Mark Zakowski, how do you keep it evidence-based driven? I guess patient design. How do you keep patient design?
I love this question. I love this question because, one of the first blog posts I ever wrote in 2008 when I was studying the science of medicine and how medical science operates was about evidence-based medicine and shared decision-making. And in particular, now remember, in my cancer case, I had a disease that very few people survived. At my time of diagnosis, so this is really personal to me. At diagnosis, my median survival was 24 weeks, I think, 5.5 months. I was supposed to die. And the only treatment that existed at the time for stage 4 kidney cancer was something that usually didn't work. And when it did, when the patient responded at all, about some percentage of the time, the patient would die from the side effects. And there was zero literature. The only literature that had ever been published about this treatment was out of date because researchers kept working forward. So medical science didn't exist until we had evidence. But then once we had evidence, we had a real problem, which was that the evidence lagged behind reality. So, and in fact, one of the documents I have on the shelf behind me, the ePatient white paper, he talked about the lethal lag time, the delay between when scientists make progress and the time when it reaches practice. So my answer is, how do you keep it evidence-based? Well, you want it to be evidence-based, but number one, you don't want it to be only evidence-based. The absence of evidence, as they say, is not evidence of absence. But the other problem is we talk about peer-reviewed evidence. Who are the peers who are doing the research? Is it and the reviewing? Is it scientists talking to scientists, or is it patients who are voting on it? This gets very serious. If you know the history of the HIV/AIDS movement, ACT UP, for instance, they objected to what work was being done in the 1980s, sponsored by NIH. They said, you guys are working on your view of what's important, and we're dying here. We want you to change your focus. That's an example of patient design.
I want that on a t-shirt. The evidence, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. I think it's simply brilliant. I haven't heard.
Oh, it's not original, but go ahead.
That's okay. Esther Kuhn had this question. Do you have an experience to share with us on getting healthcare professionals invested in patient design?
Oh, many. Through all my, something like 670 speaking events around the world now, I have seen the moment of awakening in somebody's eye when they realize, wait a minute, I can do this differently. One example, I spoke in 2011 in Jerusalem, of all places, and a doctor wrote to me a year later and said, I thought you'd like to know that I started a company based on what I realized in your discussion. He was doing informed consent. And informed consent, usually in medicine, is they give you a pile of paper to sign that says, yes, I know I might die when you do this to me, right? Or all kinds of things. It's not really informed consent. Anyway, he had taken a whole different approach. He developed an interactive video-based, he does ear surgery, an interactive video-based thing, explaining what's going to be done. And at each point, just as if it were continuing medical education, the patient can check a box that says, yes, I understand this, or no, I don't. Right? And by the end of the video, either you have a well-informed patient, or you have a printable checklist for what the doctor needs to describe to the patient. That's just one example. There have been numerous pharma companies who have said that they've brought patients in much earlier in the process. The whole idea is to get over the obsolete mindset that says patients are not scientists. What could they know? You know, this stuff is difficult, but that's exactly the mindset that the highway planners had in the 1960s when they said patients don't know about urban, or citizens don't know about urban design. Please, please, I hope people will read this paper. There's a lot of good stuff in it.
I hear so often from my peers that what can patients bring to the table? And exactly that's the kind of attitude and approach we have to remove from the medical mindset. In the meantime, Michael Millenson and Sarah, thank you for the comments. And Polly Moyer had a comment, or maybe a part of a question here. Let me share that with everyone in the chat. I'm here to represent for people with rare conditions. I would love to see patient design involved in how our medical records are kept, since many people with rare conditions have inaccurate records. I think with your job and the things that you've been doing with Open Notes, we could dedicate a whole live Q&A session only to this topic, just finding and correcting inaccurate medical records.
So I will say, first of all, take heart, because you're not the only ones. Something like, there was a study published in the US out of Geisinger Medical Center about 10 years ago, where they found that 85% of patient records contained some sort of mistake. And now some of it was relatively minor, but some of it was important. One of my CAT scan reports during my cancer in 2007 identified me as a 53-year-old woman. I don't know where they got that idea, but no big medical mistake was going to be made as a result of that. But other parts of it are really severe. My mother, before she died, had got a new eye doctor, and somebody wrote in her chart that she was diabetic. Nobody knows why. But if she wasn't an e-patient, an empowered, engaged patient, she wouldn't have noticed that, and it would have had real consequences. So I'm saying this because everyone, and I don't know what country you're in, I know in the US though, everyone is allowed to have full access to all of their records. And we are just going to be starting the process of patients saying, you must correct this. There's new software being developed to help with that process. So take heart, and I'd be happy to talk with you later about it.
Thank you, Dave, for that. Recently, I had a knee scan, and I had to bring a CD to the hospital to be able to get that. I asked if there are any cloud computing solutions. No, so I had to buy a CD from a tech store from somewhere. Michaela Sanilevici, I hope I pronounce your name well enough. Did you guys see the recent article about the Medicare using AI to refuse paying for hospital and health stay? Should optimizing profit be part of healthcare? It's not about patient design, but I guess you have some strong opinions about that.
At some level, Bercy, it is about patient design, because if I had my way, what that article talked about would be illegal. All right. And I want to be clear. Medicare is the US socialized medicine system for people over age 65. This was specifically, there is a movement in the insurance industry to destroy Medicare. And it's called Medicare Advantage. And it's perversely named because my insurance agent says he agrees with me. This should actually be called not actually Medicare. With real Medicare, the patient can go to any doctor in the country that they want to. 6-7 years ago, my wife had both knees replaced, and we went to a knee surgeon that I know through Twitter, Howard Lux, Luks, and he did a phenomenal job, and it was entirely legal. Because with the real Medicare system, you can go to any doctor who takes Medicare anywhere in the country. Medicare Advantage is commercial insurance stepping in and convincing people to not use. They're convincing people to to sign over their Medicare money to the insurance company. And they then say, you can use this doctor, that doctor, and so on. And as the question says, that article was about Medicare Advantage companies using AI to refuse coverage. Real Medicare never does that. In my opinion, if patients were involved in making those policy decisions, that would be illegal. Same for long-term stay. And optimizing profit, well, in the US, we use a baseball term for this. This is a softball question. You toss a ball there so I can go boom and knock it out of the park. The reality, the sad reality for our listeners who are not in the United States is that the structure of the US health system, where it's thousands of individual boards of directors with their own interests, is the source of all the dysfunctions in American healthcare. And I say that after almost 15 years of trying to figure out what the problem is.
Thank you for answering that, Dave. Mikhail also said that they are now giving AI a bad name for citing it as the major reason for the refusal. It's a very good point. And actually, Anthony Chow...
Let me add something on that quickly. If you want a ton of good anecdotes to get in discussions with people about this, it's not specific to healthcare, but there's a wonderful book called Weapons of Math Destruction, MATH. And the author talks about all the ways that data can be used with AI to completely screw up decisions. I mean, imagine if ChatGPT was fed nothing but Trump propaganda. Yes. It's funny, though, you know, a friend of mine this morning, when I was telling him about this event, he went to GPT-4 and asked it, what is patient design? And GPT-4 came back and gave the wrong answer. It said patient design is another name for patient centricity. And we disagree.
I actually did that.
But you know what?
Let's give it a try.
GPT-4's training data ended 2 years ago, so no wonder it wouldn't know.
Let's give it a try. I actually asked ChatGPT a few minutes ago about the difference between, I think that's the right question to ask. What is the difference between patient design and patient centricity? And here's the answer. Basically, patient design refers to the process of incorporating patient perspective and experience into the design and development of healthcare products, services, and solutions, while centricity is a broader concept that encompasses the philosophy and culture of putting patients at the center of all aspects of healthcare. I mean, it's not wrong.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Its definition of patient design talked about incorporating patient perspectives, right, in the design process. Now, you can do that by going and talking to some patient in meetings, focus groups, or whatever, and then you send them home and you go into your room and have a meeting, right? What we're talking about is having patients right there in the room saying, no, I veto that, or yes, this is what I want.
So let's just stick to the definition we provided. Patient design means that patients are involved in the highest level of decision making in an organization. And I'm so glad that you are here with me, the special guest today, and I don't have to answer the next question from Anthony Chow, but you have to. I'm doing a project about low literacy, reading at third grade level or below. According to an estimate, 21% of adults in the US are illiterate. How do we engage this patient population?
So there's an implied suggestion there that literacy is required in order to engage with somebody. Okay, what if you want to engage a population? What would you do if you find out that they're blind? What do? You interact with them in a different way, right? So use your brain. You think, if your heart really cares I need to know what's important to these people. The fact that they have a low literacy level will lead you to seek another way to find out what's important to them. And notice that my answer doesn't depend at all on whether or not, or what this particular estimate was, about 21% of adults. Use your heart and your mind to reach people. You know, it helps a lot if you have experience caring for a family member who has some sort of a disability. You know, you find out what really is important to them.
I've been trying to find
And thank
a
you for
project
asking
in
the
Australia.
question, by the way. Thank you.
Of course, I've been trying to find a project in Australia where they trained an army of so-called digital health mentors, basically social community workers who could go to these underdeveloped regions. There are many people who have difficulties with health literacy and also with digital health literacy. And they train these mentors to help them by better understanding their special needs and not by giving them more technologies to read, health information on or to get medical insights. All right, next question is from Marian Schultz, and the question is, any implications for medical and nursing practice? I guess any implications about patient design for maybe the nursing practice? I think that's quite a good question.
Well, first of all, I want to say from my own personal experience, when I was dying, when I was in the hospital, probably dying, and many people I've heard from since then, all praise to nurses who are there. People go into nursing because they've decided they got good marks in school, in science and so on, and they decided to use their brain combined with their heart to take care of people who are in trouble. And I don't think that sure, there's always going to be some sort of a spectrum of nurses who are more or less patient-centered, but in broad terms, the center of that bell-shaped curve is very strongly at the end of really asking what's important. I'll give you one example from when I was at the worst of my treatment. This highly trained nurse practitioner came to my bedside one morning, and I have relatives who are in nursing, so I know, they can have problems in life. They get up in the morning, they get dressed, they come to work in the dark, but she just, no matter who she had just been with 2 minutes ago and what their problems were, I got a very strong sense. She stood by my bedside and just quietly asked, "How are you doing?" And there was no right or wrong answer, but it was really clear that the people at that hospital cared about how I was doing. Today, we might call that patient experience. Anyway, to go to the heart of what I think your question is, implications for medical and nursing practice. As we say in our article, humanity went through centuries, millennia of where doctors and nurses couldn't really do anything scientifically for patients. All they could do is be caring. There's a famous painting called The Doctor, where a long-bearded doctor is just sitting next to a dying child with the parents in tears over by the window. But then we went through a century or two, mainly just the last century, where doctors did know science. And now we're at the point where we need to transcend that. We add in, what if we know a lot about science, but what you need to know is that there's more to it. Great. Thank you for that. You can see the mother in tears by the window. Very moving. In addition, there is more to good health care than just doing the right things technically, right? And you know what? If you get patients involved in assessing how things are going, how things are being done, you will hear, take care of me, take care of my mother, take care of my child. Don't just do things to them.
That's a very moving message. Thank you, Dave. Polly had a comment about, I wonder if the Hippocratic Oath said, I will discuss what I will write down with my clients and write what I have discussed. The issue of inaccurate notes would be solved. I'm so glad that you're saying that, Polly, because we published a paper about this, a revised Hippocratic Oath with Brandon Spiegel from the US. And in that, we actually proposed two things. One, at least many changes to the Hippocratic Oath, but there were two specific ones about your point. One is that I will respect the hard-won scientific gains of those physicians, researchers, and patients, including patient scholars, in whose steps I walk. And the other is I will treat my patients in an equal level partnership, and I will not be ashamed to say I know not. I think this is so important to say out loud that we cannot expect physicians to know everything. Thus, to just have an equal level partnership, it would mean that you could discuss even inaccuracies in medical records. But going through, there are so many questions coming in. Thank you guys for being here with us with Dave, and keep sending those questions. And I will try to ask Dave as many as possible. Dr. Yogesh Dukara had another question. To change the outlook of healthcare from the care of the sick to the daily care to maintain health, we find it difficult to convince people in proactive tracking, to proactively track their health parameters. Solution? Dave, solve that issue globally for healthcare.
You'll have to pardon me. I just got a text message that a relative is dying. So when we finish here, I'll be going to the hospital. This is real. Care of the sick to daily care to maintain health. Yes. Well, so we find it difficult to convince people to proactively track their health parameters. The work that we need to do, you see, the philosophy that doctors know what's worth knowing and patients don't, that bleeds over into the public population. What happens today, in my experience, most people end up getting woken up about their need to get involved when something goes wrong. Is Sarah Rigora from Stockholm on this seminar? In the viewers here? I invited her today.
She was here a few minutes ago. She might still be here.
Because she has a brilliant GIF of this. She's a Parkinson's patient, and she's deeply involved in a field called a new field called personal science, which is an outgrowth of the quantified self movement. She describes in this superb graphic, when I say a GIF, it's actually an animated slide that builds, where you're going through, you're getting care, and then you have this moment when you realize it's not working. I'm not going to get everything I need from this. And that's when you realize I've got to step up. Now, in my case, consider that a couple of years ago, like many people my age, I had cataract surgery and something went wrong. The right eye was fine. The left eye, something went wrong in the surgery. And someday I'll give a whole keynote speech about this. But for the moment, what you need to know for our discussion is that we eventually discovered that I have glaucoma in my left eye. Now, glaucoma is managed by monitoring the pressure in the eye. So if you've ever been to the eye doctor, they do a puff of air on your eye. That's how they do it in the doctor's office. But that gives you no information about what's happening in between visits. And I discovered that I lost 30% of the sight in my left eye. 30% of the optic nerve in my left eye is dead. And there was no way for me to stay on top of it between visits. That was my moment. Well, I never heard about this from an eye doctor, okay? But I found that there is a handheld machine made in Finland you can see it's got a little poker at the top of it. And I'm going to check my eye pressure right now. I just hold it up to my eye, and it goes like that, and then it goes in. So my point here is here's the big flip, okay? For years, it was only the doctor. For centuries, it was only the doctor who had information on how my health is. Now I have information that he doesn't. Is that amazing? Right? So it's not just a matter of making decisions about what my care will be. He doesn't even know what my status is. Right? Except I can share this with him. And when you think about it, it's not just glaucoma. This is exactly what we got a century ago when diabetics began to be able to measure their blood sugar at home. Earlier than that, it's what happened when we got home thermometers so that we could check the baby's fever ourselves. This is the great progression of digital health. Knowledge is power. I have this knowledge, he doesn't, right? And now I'm the one who's in a position to take action based on it. So
it's amazingly powerful message.
Daily care to maintain health. Yes, people need to realize now in the US, this is actually happening more and more because more and more people are saying, I can't afford to do this. Or they're saying, this happened to me a few months ago, I need an appointment, I can't get one for 2 months. In November, I had a skin cancer diagnosed on my nose, and the local hospital is designed to keep their people busy, so they couldn't take care of the skin cancer for 4 months. I downloaded my information and went to another hospital. So it's when you realize that the system itself is not designed to do everything you would want, that's when people wake up. Now, mind you, it's hard to get people to think there's a problem when they don't have a problem. Okay, so it's the same as when people start learning to drive their car, they tend to not really pay attention to the pressure in the tires until they get a flat tire, right? So thank you for asking the question, and it's going to take a generation or two. So
hopefully not as much as that, but yeah, absolutely, very powerful message. Thank you for sharing that, Dave.
Well, how long did it take us to get equal pay for women for equal work? We haven't gotten there yet, right? So
you know me, I'm an eternal optimist, and I hope that now the pace at which we can see changes could be unprecedented. But
yes.
There's 15 minutes left. Do you want to know how many questions you are lagging behind? 13. So I will just keep on dropping you the questions, and because I really want to, reward those who are here with us today and ask these amazing questions. The next one is from Michael Millenson. Are any non-US nations exemplars or examples of what you would like to see patient design be or could be?
Good questions. Good to hear from you, Michael. And I'm going to take that as a follow-up study because I don't know off the top of my head.
Can I jump in then? Just 2 examples here.
Of course.
One is, I love when I was at an OECD event, I was a keynote speaker, and the government of Denmark was represented there, and they were the government, I will never forget that said out loud in their official policy document that their job as a healthcare government is to further empower patients. Not just, like other governments kept on saying, tolerate their existence, but it's their natural job to further empower patients. I would say Denmark and Germany are definitely 2 good examples. The next question is from Azier Perez. Pretty hard question to ask. Is patient design close to design thinking or service design methodologies?
I don't know enough about the difference between those two. If you can say a little more, I'll give it a try. But it is, I mean, it certainly is an expression of design thinking.
I guess design thinking is the more higher level umbrella term, and in that service design represents one branch of methods. But I think we did mention and describe design thinking and the importance of design thinking in our patient design paper. So if that's not clarification enough for you us here, then please feel free to find more info about that in our paper.
I would summarize by saying that in either case, the question is the patient are well-informed and trained patients an active part of the decision process? Or are they consulted and then left behind?
All right, next question is coming from Fernanda Marta. How can we help motivate our doctors make a transition to a patient design practice? I would love to hear that, Dave.
I can only speak about the US because in the US, doctors are under an immense amount of pressure because of the financial structure of the US health system. Others may say that it's similar in their countries as well. But interestingly, I'm working on an op-ed article now with a doctor about patients and doctors collaborating to get the job done better against the system. So what you'll find is I know many doctors who just feel squeezed because they're not allowed to use their training because of to help patients because of the constraints put on them by their business managers. I will say that exchanges through the patient portals can be a valuable part of this. And I will tell you that I send my eye doctor through his patient portal the graphs when there's something new going on so that he can see my information. It really is collaboration.
Thank you for that. Joyce MSEM had this question. It's a cute question. How can a junior UI designer help, I guess, to facilitate the transition towards patient?
Think about, in anything you do, think about what a patient might do with the information that's being displayed. And think also about making the language no more complicated than it needs to be.
All right, thank you, Dave. The next one is from Milan Holubek. It is more reliable, effective, and economical to use common devices like smartphones, tablets, PCs to display and interact with, I always fact check, do some typos here, with medical infrastructure, or is meaningful and is there an opportunity to use a one-purpose device, maybe also with special sensors, ports, and so?
It depends, and it's continuously changing. You know, I think, well, it was your Q&A with Raphael Grossman, where you had to pull up a picture of what a Sony Walkman was, right? Back in the 1980s, so you could walk around, play CDs or things. And today, of course, that's all one of the many things that's inside our smartphones. But I don't think a smartphone is going to do this very often. And I don't think a smartphone is going to serve as my bathroom scale either, right? There's some things, if it's purely data processing, that's one thing, but you need to do something physically precisely, right? Sure, there's digital processing of the information gathered by this device, but the device itself is still physical.
I published this digital health bingo a few months ago, and I wanted to make a point that if two of these points are true for a public announcement, a company press release, a news article you are reading about the technology, then that technology should be in line with the paradigm shift we call digital health. And one of these was it uses the technology users already own, because it's much easier to help them start a new habit when like the technology requires the use of a smartphone that most patients already own. Just a little comment here about that. All right, next question is from Anthony Chow. What are the biggest hurdles or barriers? I heard national policy. What else? Oh, we can go on for like 30 minutes about that, right? The hurdles about implementing
Of course,
patient
but
design.
at a broader, at a very high level, the biggest barrier is the belief that's not how we do it. And that applies at national policy level, the individual appointment, sure. And if it's somebody my age who just needs to retire, that's one thing. If it's somebody Dr. Meskó's age who's saying that's not how we do it, we've got a real problem. Somebody, it's funny, a Jewish lawyer friend said that there's a saying in Yiddish, you need old lawyers and young doctors. Because old lawyers are basing their work on a long-standing and never-changing body of law, and that is not the way it is with medicine.
I had to digest that first, but I just want to be here to represent those that believe that age doesn't matter. Personal approach does, but age, I get that.
Yeah, but those, I mean, I'm 73 years old, and people keep saying my patients are old. They don't know how to change. Well,
all right. The next one is from Ivor Juster, quite a regular person on the chat here. To what extent will patients, and importantly their formal and informal, aka family caregivers, be involved in the design and further evolution of augmented and virtual reality enabled patient care? That's a very specific question to ask. So actually, how can we use patient design when it comes to the use of a specific technology?
This may be a superb way to start bringing this to a conclusion because it's you and me, right? What they value of AR and VR or XR, as Dr. Grossman said, is entirely in the experience of the person using it, right? It is patients who will say whether something helps them get the care that we want. We know from some of the VR and AR experiences already that not just patients, but I read somewhere that doctors can reduce their own stress level using this as well. Now, I doubt that when anybody started dreaming up VR technology, they were thinking, hey, this could make doctors feel better, right? But they're doing user-centered design thinking. Let's see what people find valuable with this innovation.
And just one comment to that. If you use our definition of patient design, it doesn't make any sense to talk about the extent, because patient design means you involve patients on the highest levels of decision making. There is no extent. It's 100%. That's the only way it works. So if I were a company developer, a VR or AR service developer, I would definitely involve in the process patient design to make sure whatever technological solution or service I come up with, that will meet real life patient needs for sure, because I involve patients on the highest level of decision making in the entire process. Just a comment about that. We have time for about 2 or 3 more questions, so guys, please keep them coming in. In the meantime, we have one from Cesar Barbu. Is a doctor's clinical expertise useful in patient design? How useful? Is it just when the product is created or during its life cycle too? It's a pretty smart question.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. For heaven's sake, some people think that patient empowerment means who needs doctors. No, I didn't even know I was sick. I got diagnosed as a result of discovering a tumor during a shoulder x-ray. I certainly couldn't have figured out that it was kidney cancer. I wouldn't have been able to administer everything. This is not at all about negating things that produce real value in the clinical encounter. This is about adding a dimension of awareness and focus so that all of that clinical expertise can produce exponentially more value in the course of the case.
Dave, we are like running out of time. I'm first of all sorry about that, but I'm so grateful to you that you've been here with us for the entire hour. You answered about 30 questions. You're a superhero in this live Q&A stream. Please just keep on doing what you have been doing for more than a decade. Not only, I mean, I've been praising you enough, you know, even face to face, but you must know that as a patient scholar now, you have led to the birth of a new generation of researchers and clinicians who think about this whole paradigm shift in a different way, because you have inspired us to make that transition in our approach. And now I cannot imagine the future of healthcare not being patient-centric and not implementing patient design, because that's the only way it would work in my mind, that all these things took place and the paradigm shift is over. And when it's done and you can be content that all the things you have been talking to me about for more than a decade, all these things have become real, so then we can start worrying about the next paradigm shift when the new medical team that consists of medical professionals who are, you know, equal level people and patients in that partnership start welcoming a new member, artificial intelligence, and a technological entity. And I can just only try to imagine what kind of challenges and ethical, social, legal implications we will face when that new equal level partnership based medical team start working with a technological entity. So I just wanted to say that thank you so much for what you have been doing and contributing to this field. And we have plenty of more things to do and more job to do, because that paradigm shift might be even a bigger challenge, a bigger bite than this one. So thank you for being here, and thank you for all those who have been here with us on the chat. I just want to make sure that you know that ePatient Dave is a little bit active online and a little bit can be found on social media channels. You can find, actually, I want to share, I will share the link in the chat in a second to his site, ePatientDave.com. You will find all his articles, analysis, really amazing videos about all the aspects about this digital health revolution. Plus, you can find many keynotes he has given around the world about important things like Let Patients Help. He also has a book about this, Let Patients Help. So make sure to check that out. And on his website, he also publishes quite openly where he will speak. So maybe you were able to meet him somewhere along the way. So Dave, thank you for being here. Thank you for inspiring me, inspiring us about this whole digital health challenge and the paradigm shift and the empowerment. I hope to see you at one of these events. We haven't met for at least a year and a half for now, which is unprecedented. So
before the pandemic.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So then more than 2 years now.
Yeah.
So I hope to meet you somewhere again. So thank you for being here, Dave.
Yeah.
Thank you for everyone being here with us. Again, here is the link to ePatient Dave's website. And in the meantime, you know that you can find everything we publish on medicalfuturist.com. You can find all the analysis I publish daily about digital health news, AI announcements, ChatGPT, GPT-4, everything on the Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram channels of the Medical Futurist. Thank you for those who are supporting us on patreon.com/themedicalfuturist or here on the YouTube channel. And even more importantly, thank you so much for being with us for this entire hour, for asking these amazing and thoughtful questions to Dave. And I hope to see you in the next Q&A session, hopefully with another amazing guest. So thank you for being here and have a nice day. Goodbye.
Thank you for having the vision to talk with me at that hot topic and all these years later still be working together. You are a real leader. Thank you.